You're looking for a storage solution that won't give you headaches, that you can actually live with day to day, and that feels like a solid investment instead of a shiny gadget with a long spec sheet. That's the exact spot most of us hit when we start scrolling past the endless list of 24-bay, 2.5 GHz, 16 TB headlines. You wonder, will this thing actually fit into my server room? Will my IT team be able to manage it without a PhD? And will I get enough bang for the buck so I'm not left scrambling for a replacement in 6 months? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Synology RackStation RS2418 Plus lands in that grey zone between just a big external drive and full-blown enterprise storage array. It's a 12-bay rack mount unit, bundled with a rail kit, an Intel Atom C3538 quad-core processor, 8 GB of DDR4 RAM, and a 24 TB SATA HDD pack. The bundle is appealing because you don't have to hunt down compatible drives or buy a separate rail kit, but you do have to do the actual drive installation yourself. That's the first trade-off you'll notice. The hardware arrives sealed, the drives are loose, and the memory sits on a separate stick ready for you to slot in. If you're a small to mid-size business that runs a handful of virtual machines, needs reliable backup for a VMware or Microsoft environment, and already has a rack space of 2U or more, the RS2418 Plus can be a quiet workhorse. The built-in DSM, Disk Station Manager, software gives you ISCSI target support, snapshot replication, and a straightforward backup wizard that integrates with vSphere and Hyper-V. In practice, that means you can map a virtual disk to a VM, take a snapshot before a major update, and roll back in minutes if something goes sideways, all without touching a command line. I've spoken with a few IT managers who set this up in a co-working space that shares a single rack. Their biggest win was the simplicity of the DSM interface. Instead of juggling separate backup appliances, they consolidated file shares, mail archiving, and VM storage onto one box. The Intel Atom processor isn't a beast, but for the typical 12-bay load mostly sequential reads and writes, occasional VM/IO it keeps the fans whisper quiet and the power draw modest, which matters when you're paying for rack power and cooling. On the flip side, if you're planning to run heavy databases, high-throughput video editing farms, or any workload that leans on sustained random I/O, you'll hit the ceiling fast. The Atom C3538 caps at 2.1 GHz and has a relatively small cache compared to Xeon-based NAS units. In real-world testing, users have reported that large file copy jobs across multiple shares can push the CPU into the high utilization zone, leading to slower response times for other services. It's not a deal-breaker for most office environments, but it's a clear signal that this is a smart storage box, not a high-performance compute node. Another practical point is the upgrade path. The chassis accepts up to 24 TB of drives out of the box, but you can swap in larger 16 TB or 18 TB SATA drives later, and you can add more RAM if you start to feel the DSM UI lagging under heavy user load. The downside is that you have to do the physical installation yourself. If you're comfortable with a screwdriver, a static wrist strap, and a quick read of the Synology manual, the process takes about 15 minutes. If you're not, you'll need to budget time or hire a tech to pull the unit out of the box, mount the drives, and confirm the RAID configuration. Who should buy this bundle? First, companies that already have a rack and want a turnkey entry into network-attached storage with built-in virtualization support. Second, IT teams that value the DSM ecosystem, especially its snapshot and replication features, because it saves a lot of third-party licensing hassle. Third, organizations that prefer a modest power footprint and don't need ultra-fast random I/O. On the other hand, if you're a media post-production house, a data analytics shop, or a gaming server host that lives on the edge of storage performance, you'll likely feel the Atom's limits sooner rather than later. In those cases, looking at a Synology model with an Xeon CPU or even a dedicated SAN could be a smarter spend. Let's talk about value beyond the headline numbers. The biggest cost saver here is the bundled 24 TB drive pack. Buying those drives separately would add a few $100s to the total, and the rail kit alone can be pricey. By getting everything in one box, you avoid the compatibility surprise where a drive you bought elsewhere won't play nicely with the NAS firmware. You also get the DSM license included for life, which is something you have to purchase separately on many other brands. The real moneymaker, though, is the reduction in management overhead. With DSM's centralized dashboard, you can monitor health, set up alerts, and automate backups without juggling multiple tools. That translates into fewer tickets for your help desk and less downtime for end users. A couple of practical weaknesses.